last week, we've had the Urban Land Institute, who have graciously come to analyze the needs of those 5 communities. And today, their report will be the beginning of their recommendations as to what we need moving forward.
We encourage you to plan for growth, but to do so realistically in terms of numbers and even more importantly in terms of time frame, but with enough flexibility to make things work when the inevitable next economic buffeting happens. And you have to remember that this is not a sprint. This is a marathon, just as it was in East Liberty. The neighborhoods are different from each other, and they require different responses. The timeline is a long-term one, and it's sequential. You're not going to do this all at once. You need funding ideas both big and small. Next, ratios in terms of the proportions of housing, types of housing stock ranging from low income through moderate through market rate. Crime, we've heard some really intriguing experience here, particularly from ELDI, about the experience that they've had with crime reduction and its effect on housing values and development patterns. Engaging existing residents, we've seen some really promising local examples of this that we'll talk about. And finally, we will give you some recommendations about the HELP initiative, which we find to be a good idea that depends on capacity and organization being convincing. And finally, ELDI's continuing role and transitioning over time.
There's one citywide challenge that inhibits really launching forward the rich community planning that's gone forward in the neighborhoods. As Alan mentioned earlier, it's the lack of comprehensive citywide planning, and we would really encourage you to continue this positive steps that you've made in that direction.
The next implementation tool is the HELP initiative. We believe that this initiative has some great bones and is something that will be positive for the neighborhood, but we wanted to ensure that it has a 3-legged strategy. That includes social capital, economic opportunity, and physical improvements.
The level of resident input in this process was extraordinary. And I spend a lot of time doing community planning and sustainable neighborhood development. So this is really, you've done something very special here that isn't done in very many places. And in the process have really touched, I think, virtually every household in Homewood. And their recommendations and their input need to be taken into consideration when identifying timing and neighborhood level interventions and improvements. That being said, the caution is that those resident wishes also have to be merged with and tempered with market realities and the current conditions within the context of East End, and these have to be factored into good decision making as well.
The issue of concentration of poverty and especially through the creation of low-income housing is one that we believe that you have to solve on a citywide and a regional basis, which is why it's so important to have a comprehensive plan. If you ask each one of the communities to take on responsibility for dealing with this issue, you will continue to concentrate, in our opinion, low-income housing where it already is. And we've heard from everyone universally that is not the goal here.
Throughout the community engagement series that we had across the city, I mean, we did hear various different opinions on how affordability looked in their neighborhood, on their block. And so that told us that there's so much more work to do regarding the affordable housing sort of issue in Pittsburgh right now, and how we all as partners, not only in the city, but also with our partners in the community, respond to that. And so it's great to hear some fresh eyes from outside the city understand that we have the opportunity to address this now. And it's exciting to think about what we can do as a sort of collective within the East End specifically to address that.